Like-Minded Arts, where I've been on a journey going from Hammer to Hollywood, and along the way, I want to help you go from being a struggling artist to a writing creative. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Michele Defilippo. Oh, did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, good. Okay. I asked you earlier and then I forgot. But I was like, Okay, so anyhow, Michele has more than 50 years of experience in the book publishing business. Her company, 1106 Design, makes it easy for authors to release a top quality book, keep control of it, and earn more money every time they sell a copy. Michele is on a mission to help authors ask the right questions to make informed decisions about publishing their books. Also, there's a PDF, an 88-page guide, Publishing Like the Pros. It's a brief guide to quality self-publishing, and it can be downloaded for free at her website at 1106design.com. Anyhow, let's get into this. Michele, you've been in this for 50 years, is that right?
53, actually.
53. How did you really don't look like you've been in this for 53 years. Let me just say that. How did you get into book publishing?
Well, it was actually an accident. I went to community college in New York where I grew up, and I went on job interviews after that. I had actually studied advertising design to do car ads and things like that. And I started going on job interviews, and Crown Publishing in New York was the first place that offered me a job, which I needed, so I accepted. And that was the beginning of my publishing career. I loved it from the very beginning. It was great.
So you started out in, it sounds like traditional publishing then.
Yes. Yes, at that time, Crown Publishing, that was 1972 now, so Crown Publishing was a baby company at that point, not the big powerhouse they are now. They were just getting off the ground, located in a dumpy area of Manhattan on Park Avenue South, and it was just a fledgling company at that time.
And so were you helping them with marketing? Because you said that you were going into marketing when you got hired there, is that right?
No, I studied advertising design, graphic design.
Okay, gotcha.
But I didn't specifically study publishing.
Okay.
But I just wound up there. And so I started at Crown, and at first I did some catalogs for them. They had a remainder division where they would sell books from other publishers that were not selling, that did not succeed. And so they would put out a catalog to the public with those, what they called remainder books, because in those days, publishers had to print thousands of books. And if they didn't sell them, they were stuck with them. So Crown decided to make money by publishing and cataloging, getting rid of these books for other publishers. And so I started doing that catalog for them, pasting up pages, which was the technology at the time. There were no computers. Yeah, it's hard to imagine. And then I moved on. I got some opportunities to design music album covers and books and book interiors and book covers as I was there for a while longer. So that was interesting.
Okay, so, and how long were you actually there before? Because the traditional, self-publishing at that time was considered more vanity publishing, wasn't it? And
it didn't exist.
Oh, didn't it? Okay.
No, well, not in the way we know it today. I mean, anybody could go to a printer and print up a book, right? Write a book and have a printer print it up. But there was no distribution available to independent publishers in those days. If you wanted to get your book into bookstores and available to the public, you had to work with a publisher. That was the only alternative.
So how long was it since you started there before the self-publishing thing started coming on your radar?
Oh, a long time. I started working in 72, so in 1976, my husband at the time and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. We were young and ready for an adventure, and we came to Phoenix because my grandparents had retired here, and we loved it. And we made the erroneous assumption that we could find a job as easily in Phoenix as we had in New York, and quickly found out that wasn't the case.
Oh, no.
So we both found jobs, but neither one of us could make more than minimum wage at the time. And that was quite a rude awakening for me, because I was making decent money in New York as a graphic designer. And all of a sudden...
Was it still in the graphic design world that you were looking at when you got those jobs, or did you have to settle for something else entirely?
No, I did work at printing companies and such here in Phoenix, doing graphic design, but it wasn't a valued skill as it was in New York.
Okay.
So I was pretty much making minimum wage, maybe a little more than that, working for printers and defense contractors and the like, but basically dead-end jobs. And my husband couldn't find a job either, so he decided to go back to school. And he would go to school and work part-time at Jack in the Box. So, that wasn't too satisfying either. So in 1980, we decided, I found about typesetting businesses. And I had an opportunity to open a typesetting business in 1980. And so I did that from 1980 to 1993. In those days, again, there was no desktop computer equipment available, so typesetting was done on $35,000 machines, and we used to set the type for books and ads and annual reports and that sort of thing, and deliver it to the customer, who would then paste it up into the final form for the printer. It's crazy.
So how did you go from that to the self-publishing world? I mean, eventually, I'm sure you saw some kind of a gap in the market there, but what actually made you think, now self-publishing, that's where I really need to be in?
Well, it wasn't voluntary, right? Because I started the typesetting business in 1980, and by 1993, Steve Jobs invented the Macintosh a few years before that. But by 1993, I had no customers left because everybody was doing their own typesetting on their own desktop. So, it was kind of interesting to take apart two $35,000 typesetting machines and throw them in a dumpster. That was not a fun time. So the typesetting business literally evaporated, and I went back to freelancing. And at that time, I ran across a brochure in the library for the Arizona Book Publishing Association. And I thought, what's that? And so I went to a couple of meetings, and that's when I learned that self-publishing was becoming a thing. Amazon had made it possible for anyone who wanted to publish a book on their platform to do so. And so that was an earthquake in the publishing industry. All of a sudden, authors did not have to go to a publisher to get distribution. And so there was suddenly a huge market for people who wanted to have their books designed and typeset. And that's when I formed 1106 Design.
Okay, and so you've been in that since then. And so that helps me understand where you're coming from and things. Let's talk about, there's a couple, because this whole landscape for self-publishing, I imagine, has evolved since Amazon first started that to the point it is now. I mean, what's that change look like? How do you keep up with something like that?
Well, just trying very hard to keep up with the news. But yes, it has changed in the last 23 years or so. And in my opinion, not always for the better. Originally, self-publishing meant that everyone understood at the inception of self-publishing that the author was the publisher. The author assumed all of the roles and responsibilities that was formerly carried out by publishing companies, and the author would hire the experts to produce a quality book, and then the author would distribute the book themselves under their own name to Amazon and everywhere else, and keep all of the net revenue from sales when a book was sold. And that worked out really well, right? Because you can't avoid the expenses of the retailer taking a cut or the printing, paying for the printing. But all of the money other than that should go directly to the author in true self-publishing. And that's the model that we still carry forth today. But in the last 24 years, we started seeing, first we saw self-publishing companies. Authors would sign up with them and give up their control and their freedom of publishing themselves and handing that over to a self-publishing company, right? Yeah. And so then the self-publishing companies got a bad reputation and they rebranded themselves as hybrid publishers. That's the term you'll pretty much hear nowadays, a hybrid publisher. Self-publishing companies would charge the author to produce the book, and then they'd also take money out of their pocket when the book was sold. The author no longer got all of the revenue from sales. The self-publishing company would take part of it and give the author what they called a small royalty.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of hard to describe. Way back when traditional publishing was the only option, the publisher paid for all the experts. The publisher recouped its investment by taking most of the money from sales and giving the author a small royalty. Okay. That was fair. That was fair because the authors, the traditional publisher spent the money to produce the book.
Yeah, makes sense.
The author, right? The author paid nothing. The publishing company took on all the risk and all the expenses, so they would get most of the money from sales when a book was sold. Perfectly legitimate business model. The self-publishing companies, when they came on the scene, they started charging the author to produce the book, and then they also take money out of the author's pocket when a book is sold.
Basically, the author ends up with nothing.
That's right. The author has made the investment, but the self-publishing company earns the revenue. So it doesn't make any sense.
No.
But that's really a difficult message to overcome because authors think they need a publisher again.
Yeah, I know that, like, in my books, like, I tried to go when I was first starting out with my trunk novels, which weren't all that great at the time, I remember trying to go the traditional route, and I was looking at the margins that I'd get out of them if I actually did get accepted. I was like, why would I can self-publish this. I can learn the skills to do this. But it was, it was just real eye-opening. And then I helped some of my friends also with their self-publishing ventures. Now, you've been around this a while. Are there different types of self-publishing out there, or how does that landscape actually look right now?
Well, one of the most destructive, I think, messages that has evolved is that the do-it-yourself message, that authors should design their own books and typeset their own books. They don't even call it typesetting anymore. They call it formatting. But the whole narrative that an author should make their own book, if they don't have the skills and experience to do it well, has resulted in an awful lot of really terrible books on the market.
I've actually published some of those myself.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about the writing now, right? I think authors have all the skills they need to be their own publisher and to write well. That's fine. But you do need help. If you want your books to look like the kind of books that you find in a bookstore, you do need professional editing and design and ebook formatting and all the rest. And that's a whole specialty. It's a whole career in itself. And that's what we do. But so there's the do-it-yourself message, which is wrong, and there's the I gotta hire a publisher message, which is wrong, because today's publishers, except for the traditional ones, charge you to produce the book, and then they also take most of your revenue from sales.
And they still make you do all your own marketing.
Yes. And that's why I'm doing these podcasts.
So I know that in today's world, AI is becoming very prevalent, and people are thinking maybe I don't need to hire an editor, maybe I don't need to hire a cover designer. Why can't I just ask ChatGPT to create my own thing for me, or to edit it all for me? What's your take on this kind of this development? I mean, because it's a fast-moving world right now, and it's a little scary in some parts, but in other parts it's almost liberating. But where does that actually lie in your experience so far?
Well, I'll confess, I use Grammarly, right? Mostly for emails and sometimes to improve something that I'm writing for casual reasons. But AI does not have human feelings. It's strictly information that it's gathered from here and there and everywhere. And I don't think it will ever replace the creativity and the passion and the emotion that a human author can bring to text. At least I hope not. Because I'm not sure where we would wind up if that's the case.
Yeah, I've read some books that were tried to be passed off as written by the author, and was clear that they were written by AI. And it's like, this book has no soul. It has no...
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, you're hitting punchlines, you're hitting beats, but something's missing, and it's not engaging me.
Exactly. It's flat.
Yeah.
It's factual, but it's not emotional. I mean, think of the way your favorite authors use words in a way that you never heard before. Only a human can do that, right? Think Stephen King and Dean Koontz or whoever you like to read. Just the whole creative package that authors bring to text, I don't think will ever be replicated. But it's tempting, if someone believes the narrative that AI can write your book and you can make a lot of money in no time.
What about like the cover design and stuff? Because there's so many image generation things out there now that, I mean, have you had any experience with how that's shaping and changing it?
Well, I have very strong feelings about that.
Which is why I'm asking, because I'm very curious to know.
Because again, where is AI getting that image generation knowledge? It's picking it from illustrators and artists and designers, and it's just appropriating it unto itself without permission. So, and at the moment, technically speaking, AI is not generating the high resolution images needed for printing, right? And the downside is that you can ask AI to do an image, but it's not really good at making changes that you might request to that image.
Right.
And changes happen all the time in the graphic design industry. It's a collaborative process. Like, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? And so AI doesn't do that well.
Yeah.
If you let's say it generates an image of a man with a shirt, and the shirt is white, and you say, I want that shirt to be yellow. Well, at the moment, it'll generate a whole different man with a yellow shirt, right? So you again, it's the human element that it's not replicating. Maybe in 20 years it will. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see where it's going, how it's going. I've played with it myself, and one of the things that I think for me too is you're creating these images and they're not exactly what you want. Maybe they come really close, but also I think there's a level of industry know-how in how a book cover can format, because you can tell it to format a book cover styled image, but unless you're actually a professional in that field, because just creating an image is different from creating something that will actually draw attention to it and help sell it too. And I'm not 100% sure that they've got that down either.
No, and it may happen over time. I don't know. When my typesetting business evaporated, part of the problem was that I didn't recognize how important Macs were going to be. I didn't recognize when they were first invented that they were going to get better and they were going to eliminate my business. So I hung on probably longer than I should have. So I think that's probably likely to happen with AI too. But again, the creativity, right? And a human graphic designer knows what's necessary for good printing. I don't think AI is particularly good with typography just yet. It'll put the words you specify on the cover, but when a book cover designer, we sweat amazing number of details to make sure the image and the typography and the composition and the color and the balance are all just so that it looks like a best-selling book cover. A lot of effort goes into it. People don't realize it. I once had a woman call me and say, how much do you charge to make a book cover? And I told her $1,500. And she said, what? Do you mean $15? It should be $15. She was yelling at me. Oh, no. It should be $15. I know you only spend 15 minutes on a book cover. You can't fool me. So I wish, but no.
Sometimes it's fun to...
That's not the case.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll move on from that topic for now. So, in your experience, because I remember talking with an artist once, and he really enjoyed the ebook style format, and he was a little bit younger. It was easier for him to do. Why go out and clutter my room or my house with a whole bunch of print copies? And maybe he felt like he didn't get the soul out of the audiobook versions, but What is your opinion on all the different formats available? Is there a need for all of them, or is the market gravitating towards one over another, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, actually, it's interesting. All the formats are selling very well. Audiobooks are growing the fastest, but they're all selling in roughly equal numbers, right? And I remember shortly after I joined the Arizona Book Publishing Association, I think that was 1997 or so, that was the first time ebooks had just begun to come out. And at that time, that was the first generation of ebooks. And of course, they were all predicting that print was dead and nobody would ever want a print book again. And that was in 1997. Well, that didn't happen. People still love print books and people still love ebooks and they still love audiobooks. And sometimes they'll buy all three formats.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. Personally, I still like a print book.
Uh-huh.
I'm sick of looking at a computer screen at the end of the workday. I want to sit down and enjoy a book. And I'll listen to audiobooks too for that same reason. Sometimes I just want to close my eyes and have someone else read to me. So I think it's a personal preference, and I think smart indie publishers should let their customers decide. It may turn out that they sell more ebooks than print books, depending on the genre. Novels, I would say, sell more in ebook format than print books, but nonfiction books sell more in print because when you're studying something, an ebook is not really conducive to that.
That makes sense.
Or an audiobook is not too conducive.
That's interesting.
So,
I know I actually read all three myself, but what you just said makes a lot of sense to me because when I'm reading that nonfiction style book, I'm trying to learn something from there, and I want to make notes in it. And my fingers are a little clumsy to make notes on my phone, and I don't like doing it. And but yeah, when I'm like reading books, because I occasionally review people's books, I'll be reading those, and that's just easy because I can pull it out, and if I got a few minutes, I can read a few pages here and there, and at the end leave a quick review or something. But yeah, like when I'm commuting, audio is the only way to go, and I love driving with an audiobook. It's one of my favorite things.
Yep, and that's why they're growing so fast, right? Because we're all multitasking, trying to get more than one thing done at a time. And audiobooks are growing because the technology is now in automobiles.
It's fascinating. So basically, if you're an indie or a self-publishing person, don't ignore any of the three.
Well, I would say at least you should start with print and an ebook, right? Audiobooks can be expensive.
Right.
So I always tell people don't get too far ahead of yourself. See what the market wants. You may start hearing from your customers that they'd like an audiobook, and if you start hearing that a lot, then you can consider, I would think, adding the audiobook version on top.
So if someone's never considered audio before, because I've done some audiobooks myself. I've actually tried recording them myself too. That's actually really hard if you're not
into very hard.
But,
yes.
If you're going into this, I mean, what's the pay structure like? Do you get? Because I know that some really good ones might charge a royalty, but I've only ever seen the pay one or the one and done kind of payment set up before. Have you noticed that any of them ever actually try to push the royalty thing, or what's that look like?
Are you talking about narrators now?
Yeah, narrators when they narrate.
Okay, yeah. Most narrators want their fee, right? And they're not willing to take a risk on sales with you. And you can't blame them for that, right? No. Everybody has to make a living. But audiobooks, you don't get, at least at Audible, you don't get to choose the price.
Right.
Amazon chooses the price for you. So you don't have as much control as you do over your print book.
Because I'm a little bit in the film world here too, and in film, especially once you get into the bigger production companies, they all have royalty charges. You know, if you had any piece in the movie, you can plan on reoccurring checks. But have you seen any of that in the? Because it's still a performance. But do you ever see any of that, or can it all be just a one single transaction?
Well, I suppose it differs between, whatever arrangements you make with your narrator. I always recommend a professional narrator because, as you said, it's really difficult to do. And a trained voice actor can make a novel come to life like you wouldn't believe. Right. And I've even heard some audiobooks myself that are narrated by people on TV, right? You know, whose voices you're familiar with, but they can't do an audiobook well.
I've heard of some where people will find the narrator, doesn't matter what the title of the book is, they're like, I trust this narrator, I'm going to listen to that book.
Yeah. Some of them are really just terrific. They can bring a book to life like you can't believe.
Oh, cool.
So maybe some of the I don't know, maybe some of the more famous ones are willing to take a chance, but I suppose it's a case-by-case basis. If they think the book has a real chance to sell significantly, then they might take a chance with you. But
for most
that's
of us
not
in
like,
the self-publishing world, they're probably going to want their fee, and if they're doing the next Tom Clancy, they might get some royalties or something out of that. But,
yeah.
So for most of us, we can probably expect to just pay one time.
Right.
Okay. What about marketing? Because you also have marketing services that you deal with. I mean, do we have to be marketing gurus to be a self-published author?
No, but what we have is we have do it yourself marketing resources where you'll have all the data you need to spend the time to market the book yourself effectively. And then we also recommend marketing professionals. We don't actually do the marketing in-house because it's just not what we know best. Okay. Marketing can be expensive, right? Most indie authors maybe can justify and afford a 6-month marketing push, but it's really difficult to justify beyond that. So I would think it's always a good idea if you have the proper training to try to do it yourself, especially if you're writing more than one book, because you can make a small one-time investment and then take those skills and do it yourself for every book that you write.
Okay. So we do need to learn how to market, it sounds like, though. But
and most authors don't want to do it.
Well, we are all stuck in our creative side. We want to write our books. Can't we just be artists and let the people come to us?
It would be nice. I talk to people all the time who say, I'm going to put my book on Amazon and people will just find it. You know, I won't have to do any marketing. The book is so good, I won't have to market it. But that's not true.
Well, even just a simple Facebook post to all your friends, you might sell a few copies to your friends, but then it dies from there. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm really interested about your business here that you've got going. And I was actually scrolling through all of your testimonials and things. I'm really curious to know about some of your success stories from people who've actually used your services and how they've been able to go from just an unknown to actually finding their audience.
Well, the people who our customers who do best and who return most often are coaches and consultants and business people, because they're not depending on retail sales to quote unquote succeed in publishing, right? Retail sales are the toughest way to make money in publishing because the retailer takes 40 to 55% of the cover price right off the top. Then you have to pay for the printing or the ebook distribution fee, and so there's really not much left for the author. You literally have to sell thousands of books to break even. But the business people, they use a book to promote their business or their coaching practice or their speaking. Some of them are professional speakers, and they sell books. They sell books at the back of the room, but they also use their book to pitch new clients and establish their credibility with new clients. And so the money doesn't come directly from the book, but the book helps them make money in what they do.
That's an interesting way to think about it, because most of what I do is like the creative side of thing, but I know that a lot of authors, they do that. They do that to bring awareness to their other things that they're doing. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm actually doing that myself with my own little book that I give away for free. It's a way to introduce yourself in a non-threatening way to a potential new customer.
Interesting.
Right, because they can read it, and it doesn't have to be a full-length book either. Mine is 88 pages, but you give some of your expertise and you let people decide for themselves whether or not they find it interesting. Nobody wants to talk to a salesman, right? Nobody wants to be pitched.
So I might put you on the spot here a little bit, but have you ever seen anybody try to take that same approach on the creative side where they maybe give away their first book for free a lot to basically build their personal brand awareness and have that work?
You can certainly do it. I don't know how well it works or doesn't work. I suppose that's an individual, case by case basis. Some people use the I think it's the Kindle Unlimited. They start for the first 90 days giving their book away for free, but it may or may not work, right? Because there's a lot of people who will only go for the free stuff and
That's true.
expect stuff to always be free, and nobody can live like that.
Pricing's really funny sometimes. Sometimes if you give it away for too cheap, then people value it as too cheap, but if you give it away for too much, it's too expensive, and finding that right happy spot. Like I've done that though. I've gone on Kindle before just looking for a free book and ended up finding one of my favorite authors that way, and I've probably given him a lot of money over the years. But yeah, it's interesting. So I guess I'll move on from that though. But how? I guess we've kind of asked this a little bit before. The publishing landscape has been changing a lot. I mean, you've seen the changes from the very beginning to where it is now. Do you see any big changes on the horizon, or how do you stay current?
I just keep I get the same emails and newsletters and blog posts as everybody else does. I just try to keep reading everything and try to stay abreast. I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't know where it's going next. It would be nice. It would be nice to know. But we just take it one day at a time.
Well, that's awesome. In your experience, what could elevate an average book into a superior book?
Well, you won't be surprised to learn that I believe it's the professional services, right? If you're writing your first book and you have no experience working with an editor, you are going to be amazed at what a professional editor does with your text. And sometimes authors are afraid of that. I don't want anybody changing my words, but a good editor doesn't change your writing style or your voice, but they will suggest ways to smooth out the text that maybe you can't see because you've been concentrating so hard on getting every word correct. And everything an editor does is also optional. You don't have to accept it unless you want to. So my advice would be, don't be afraid to work with a really good editor, because that's the reading experience for your buyer.
I'm a big fan of getting professional editing services done, and there's more than one kind of editing service too, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's levels of editing, right, that everybody knows about: substantive editing, copy editing, proofreading. Basically, people talk about others, but those are the three basic levels. Now, a substantive edit is almost like you have a writing partner, right? That editor is really going to talk about what you've done right, what you've done wrong, what you should cut, what you should rearrange, that kind of thing. The copy editor is more of a nuts and bolts, punctuation, redundancy, style,
continuity.
A little bit of continuity. Sometimes you've repeated yourself. We once had a funny situation where a copy editor found that one of the characters that died early in the book was somehow magically brought back to life in a later chapter. And you can see how it would, right? Because you don't write the whole book in one session. Yeah. So you maybe came back to it 2 weeks later and you forgot that you killed him off in an earlier chapter. So
our book went from being a romance to a paranormal romance.
So editors are essential. And again, you don't have to be afraid because you don't have to accept everything.
Okay, cool.
But that objective pair of eyes is absolutely necessary because none of us see the errors in our own writing.
And I especially think that's important if you're starting out too, because I know that my first few books, I thought they were amazing, but then you go through them and especially with an editor and they're giving you all these suggestions and it's like, well, what do you know? Because this is my story. This is how I want to tell it. But then you come back and look at it later with some fresh eyes and you're like, holy cow, how was I so blind to all of that? For me, getting an editor is almost like going to school again. It's you're improving your craft while you're improving your product.
Yes, and you learn. You absorb what the editor suggests, and you don't after a while you value it. You don't fear it like a first time author might. But that's true in every business, isn't it? We all learn and get better at whatever it is we do. It's true in design. Yeah. You know, when I look back on things that I did back at Crown Publishing, I was like, oh my God, they paid me for this, you know. Terrible.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
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 So what is probably the hardest part about self-publishing in your opinion?
It's a big responsibility. There's a lot of things to master, a lot of things to keep track of, and I think that's the number one reason why authors decide to work with a publisher. You know, part of the reason might be they're looking for the approval of a third party, right? But I think a lot of authors just want somebody else to handle most of the day-to-day and all of those tasks. And that's where the third alternative between do-it-yourself and hiring a publisher exists. And that's what we do. And not only us, but many people have what's called an author services company, where we do everything for you that a publisher does, except take your money when the book is sold. Yeah.
Very good of you.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that is a big talking point for me when I'm trying to talk to people about this. But for me, publishing, being an artist, things like that is so hard that I feel like it's important to have other ways to be financially solvent, I guess, because if you're just starting out as a writer, it's, how do I put this? It's hard to find success that's going to actually support your family, or at least from what I've seen.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
I wouldn't get, again, like I said, you know, everyone, don't get ahead of yourself, right? And especially don't believe these companies that say that they're going to make your book a bestseller. I mean, they're out there, you know, we'll charge you $30,000 and your book will be a bestseller. And that's just a flat out lie, right? There are some dishonest schemes, right?
Right.
But for the most part, it's just playing on an author's emotions, because of course everybody would love to be a best-selling author. But don't give up your day job, because publishing is one of the most competitive industries out there. Not to discourage anyone, but something like 2 million books are published every year.
That's a lot.
Not too many books, not 2 million books printed, 2 million new titles come out every year.
That's a lot of competition for your eyeballs.
That's a lot of, yes. And you know, it's really hard to be heard, I'll be honest about. So that's why I say, you know, if you're publishing a book for your business and you have an opportunity to make money in ways other than retail sales, that's really good to.
Okay. So that just confirms what I've been thinking the whole time. It's like, make sure you've got a way to pay your bills, to take care of your family, because self-publishing is hard, and even if you do find success, it's going to take time to get there.
Yes. And books, you know, even if you do find success and a book sells for a while, it's not going to sell every year at the same level.
Right.
Even from major publishers, it might hit a peak and then it goes down, down, down. It's just the nature of the industry.
I had a friend, he'd just gotten out of his last job, and he comes up to me, he's like, hey, Brent, what do you think if I just start writing books? I've got some story ideas. I think I'm going to do that for my next career or for my next job. I'm like, you've never written a book yet? Get a job first. Make sure you're covered, because it's not that simple. It takes time. And
it's hard to have a job and family responsibilities and also find the time to write.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, your family's got to come first.
And even when you do put your family first, like, I remember when I first started writing, I'd do it at home and just kind of wanted to be around the family. But then every time somebody walked in on me, I'd like bite at them. I'm working. And I'm like, this isn't working. I got to find a better way to do this.
Yeah. I think it's great that we all have the freedom and the ability to express ourselves now. We don't need the permission that you used to need from a publisher. And, you know, traditional publishers still will change your book into what they think is going to sell, because they're making the investment in the project. And you can't blame them for, you know, to the freedom to be able to do what you want and do it in your own way is great. It's earth-changing.
Is there, this could be something that we've already discussed, or maybe something that I haven't even thought to ask you, but are there 2 pieces of advice that you would like to give a new writer?
Yeah, when you're ready to publish, what I hear most often that is the most disturbing is that I want your services, but I can't afford them, so I'm going to go with someone cheaper, or I'm going to do it myself. I would beg you, please, please, if you have to wait a while and save up, hire the best people to produce your book, to edit it, to design it, to make it market ready. Because if you don't, the buyers are not going to forgive you. They're going to jump on Amazon. They're going to post bad reviews, if they find typos or whatever the problem is that they discern. Make sure your book is ready for market. You can't ask people to turn over their hard-earned money with for a mediocre product. It's just a mistake.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
No, I can't think of anything else. You ask great questions.
No, I hope so. You've been very informative, and I think that especially, well, regardless whether you're first starting out or you've been in this a while, I think you provide a lot of value to self-publishing and to anybody who's just trying to get a grip on that. And I mean, I come across stories all the time of people who are asking me, how do I write a book? How do I do this? Should I use AI to help me? Should I be trying to go traditional or self-publishing? And I think that the services that you offer and the know-how, just the years of quality experience that you bring to the table, I think somebody would be foolish not to take advantage of all of that know-how that you've developed.
Well, thank you. I did think of one other thing. It just, if there's one thing to remember from this whole conversation is that you don't need a publisher. So if you find yourself looking around for a publisher, stop and look for an author services company instead.
I think I've heard of one. I think it's something to the effect of 1106.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mentioned it earlier, but tell everybody how they can find you and get your services, and if there's anything that you want to share, just help us find out how to get in touch with you.
You can find everything about us on our website at 1106design.com. You'll see prices, you'll see design samples, you'll see educational articles, and you can contact us, tell us a little bit about yourself and your book. And our next step will be a respectful, no-pressure conversation to see if we want to work with each other. We don't engage in some of the tactics that you see elsewhere in the marketplace now. We're not going to send you 5 emails a day until you relent. We don't do business that way. We're just old-fashioned in that regard, too, as well as in our skills and approach.
Awesome. And I know that you have a book for sale on Amazon, but I think you also are giving a little bit of a promo to anyone who gets it from you directly at your website. Is that right?
Well, you can get it for free on my website.
And that's like a $5 to $8 value on Amazon.
Yeah, it sells for $9.95, but you can get a PDF absolutely free. Just plug in your email address, and I truly, sincerely want people to have this information. It's being buried by people who have more financial resources than we do to dominate the search engines, and it's really detrimental. What's happening to authors is really detrimental, and that bothers me.
Well, thank you so much, Michele, for joining me here. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've learned from you already, and I look forward to finding out more from you. I'm going to totally go on your website and download your book also, and I recommend that anyone out there listening keep Michele in mind. She's got so much experience in this already. I mean, 53 years in this industry. Guys, take advantage of it while you can here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
And if you did find this content valuable or helpful to you, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.